What up, Sean? We're going to start in just a second. Just kind of figuring out some stuff on the live stream end of things. And then we'll kind of get going really quick. We got a U17 game. Got some U17 players against Slovenia in the USA. USA absolutely kicking butt. Seems like there's some interesting prospects coming down the ranks. So we'll see how this goes. Again, this is very interesting to kind of watch the whole kind of youth system and seeing which players are going to be kind of coming up the rank. And we'll talk a little bit about it as we talk about the NBA draft, the biggest winners and losers. So hopefully you guys are enjoying your Sunday afternoon. Again, day before happy 4th of July day. So make sure you guys celebrate and stay tuned, man. Like I said, we got a lot of stuff to talk about in this draft class. There's a lot of things to talk about in terms of what moves teams can make. Obviously we have to talk about kind of the late breaking news about Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and what's going on with them. And so I think this will be a fun draft for all of us to kind of recap, because of course I did miss that because I was sick. So with that being said, we're just going to watch just a little bit, 32 seconds left of this USA-Slovenia game, and then we'll get started right into talking about the NBA draft. I have the draft results here. And we'll talk about like what moves teams made and like which moves I liked, which moves I didn't like. And again, there is a lot to talk about when it comes to this NBA draft class, because I think this is going to be one where there's going to be a lot of role players that really help a lot of teams. And I kind of like some of the pickups, especially the second round. I think there were some good pickups, and we'll talk about those as well. But like I said, hopefully you guys are enjoying your 4th of July weekend. Send it for a lot of us again. Stay safe, be smart. And I think that's going to do it here for that. So, with that being said, let's move over to the other side of things. Oops. So, with that being said, let us pause the music as we are officially into NBA draft mode right now. We're going to talk about the draft and what happened. Of course, Pete and I did talk about the first 3 picks. So if you guys are interested in kind of learning what we said or what we thought about it, go find that live stream. We talked about it tremendously. We talked about the first 3 draft picks especially. And I'll kind of reiterate my points from this draft class from this perspective. So with that being said, let's get started right into it. Let's talk about the first round. I thought the first round kind of went a little bit different than I think a lot of people expected, especially the first couple of months out of the season. And even going into kind of the regular season and maybe not regular season, excuse me, but more so like before the playoffs started, after March Madness, the consensus from everybody was the fact that Jabari Smith was going to be the first round pick. Everyone thought that he was going to be the number 1 guy. The Magic were going to, kind of team him and Suggs. But I think Paolo Banchero's workouts and things that happened for him, not only during the tournament, but also kind of what happened, like I said, in the pre-draft workouts and kind of what we saw from him. I think a lot of people were interested in Paolo Banchero, and I think the Magic were like, okay, let's try to take a chance on this guy. Again, I made the bold claim that I thought that could be a good Shaq and Penny combination with him and Jalen Suggs. Of course, you have Wagner on your team as well. I really do think that this team has the potential to be a special team in the near future. Again, they kind of remind me of a very young, I would say, I don't want to say Pistons team because I think they're still looking for a couple pieces here and there. But they definitely have some guys that could definitely contribute. Again, I said Wagner can contribute. You have Jalen Suggs on this team. And now that you add Paolo Banchero, I think you can add some variety to this team. I think there is a lot. And they just re-signed Mo Bamba. Again, whatever you think of Mo Bamba, I think he does have potential to somehow get better in this league, but it all depends on the growth and development of him and what he does in his near future, because this is the second contract now. Again, he didn't get the money that I think a lot of that maybe he was expecting. I'm sure he was expecting a supermax, and again, I think Mo Bamba has a lot to improve on before we start giving anybody some supermax deals. But again, I do like this pickup from Paolo Banchero from the Magic side of things. I would have to give the Magic, if I had to give them a grade, I'd give them an A, just because of the fact that I think that for the question for me for Paolo Banchero is he going to be, does he have enough to take over a game when it matters most? And again, there were times where I was a little disappointed in that, especially in the last Duke game that they played in. I thought there were times where he could have taken over, but again, that could have been just due to Coach K with the X's and O's not really being there and kind of just following his lead. And so from that perspective, I'm hoping that at some point Paolo Banchero can step up and take that opportunity. I like Paolo Banchero, obviously from the Seattle area. I'm going to be a little bit biased. Watched him at O'Day. I think he's going to be a good player in the near future. I know there's a lot of questions about his defense, but I think those questions will get answered soon enough for the Orlando Magic as we continue to see what goes on in the near future. And here we go. We got Tar Heel Nation. Shout out to you, giving us a comment in the comment section. You said, do you think Suggs still has a higher ceiling, or do you think he's more of a Jordan Clarkson prototype? When it comes to him coming to Jalen Suggs, what I do like about Jalen Suggs is that I do think that he has a lot of good potential. I think playing the quarterback position, being in a position where he was a quarterback at one point in his career, I think that field vision and things will open up for him. Again, a lot of people compared him to a Derrick Rose coming out of college and maybe coming out of high school. I think he does have that type of ceiling in him. I think the question is, do the Magic surround him with talent? Because again, he's not going to be a guy that takes over a game where I'm like, yes, this guy's going to average 25 to 28 points a game, going to be doing all that stuff. I think I more see him averaging about 18, 8 and like 3 or 4, because I think he's so athletic. I think he can get those rebounds. But I do think that he has the ability and potential to be better than Jordan. I think with Jordan Clarkson, he's more of a scoring guard in terms of that's his main job, right? As the sixth man, as kind of what we've seen throughout his career, he's going to be a guy that's going to more so be a guy who attacks the basket, scores buckets, and isn't really worried about assists. Where I feel like Jalen Suggs will be kind of more of the assist guy. And I think that's where you see a guy in Jordan Clarkson kind of being in that operation. Whereas a guy like Suggs will be kind of more of like a playmaker, facilitator. Sean, I don't know if you agree or disagree with me with that Jalen Suggs take, but I think teaming up with Paolo Banchero is a good move. I know that you wanted him to be on the Raptors last year, but again, I do like Scotty Barnes and kind of what he was able to do for that team. So, Tar Heel Nation, I would have to say that I think Suggs can have a higher ceiling in terms of playmaking, but scoring wise, I think he's going to be that 18 to maybe 20. But I don't see him scoring any more than 20 points a game. Not due to the fact that I don't think he can, but I think for the Magic and for that team to be successful, he kind of has to average those points and kind of let Paolo Banchero be the scorer of the team, because his offensive moves are so pronounced and they're so different. And so I think that's where, in my opinion, where you could potentially look at a guy in Jalen Suggs who's going to be more of a facilitator, whereas you have Paolo Banchero being the scorer for you, like again the Shaq and Penny combination that I talked about in the video or in the live stream a couple days ago. So let's move on to number 2. And again, guys, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of Paolo Banchero? Are you a fan of his, or do you think that he's going to be a guy that won't be able to carry a team and kind of be off to the side? Suggs will be an all-star someday, IMO. Okay, Sean. I like the conviction. Let's see here. I'm going to change the chat box really quick, because it's just so... Let's see here. Let me see here. I'm trying to change the... Sometimes it's not the color I need it to be. I don't know if it's boxed. All right, someone send another chat in the chat. I want to see what it looks like if I put it in boxed form and see if it looks a little bit better, or if it still kind of looks a little bit not as clean. Okay, there we go. Yes, Paolo Banchero was a quarterback in high school. That is that was a fun fact. I do agree with you, Russ. He was the quarterback in high school, but as soon as he became 6'8", 6'9", those dreams ended right away. But like I said, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of Paolo Banchero? Are you guys a big fan of his? Do you guys think that he'll be an all-star? Do you guys think that he'll be a superstar? Or do you think that he'll be just a nice scoring player for the Orlando Magic? Let's move on to number 2. Number 2, we got Chet Holmgren. Chet is a very interesting player in terms of, I think there is a lot of people that are very, what's the right word for it? I think that there's a lot of people that are very iffy on Chet Holmgren. I think a lot of people are going to claim that Chet Holmgren is a bust. They think he's going to be the worst player since, I don't even know, like Anthony Bennett. I think there's a lot of people are kind of in that category. And so that's going to be a very interesting situation for me to kind of see what's going on for Chet Holmgren. I like Chet Holmgren. I think he can do a lot of great things for the Thunder, and I think he got drafted to the perfect team. Just due to the fact that they have so many pieces. You have a guy in Josh Giddey. You already have Josh Giddey. You have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're thinking about re-signing Lou Dort. I probably would have re-signed Lou Dort. And then, of course, you have Polsky. I can't remember the dude's name. Let me look at their Thunder roster. Because I do think I like their roster a lot. I think they have a lot of great pieces. You know, you have Trey Mann. You have Josh Giddey, like I talked about. You got Theo Maldon as kind of just a backup. Derek Favors, again, another guy that can help him out. Melvin Frazier Jr. I do like Melvin Frazier. He's kind of one of my surprise players in the draft a couple years back. And so I think for me, what I do like this class. I think this is an underrated. I think this is an underrated team in terms of how they can build around them. Again, you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's in the perfect age range. You have Lou Dort, who, again, you could re-sign as kind of a defender. You have Pusevsky, who's another guy that you're looking at. You can have two 7-footers in Pusevsky and Chet Holmgren. Here's what I will say about Chet Holmgren and my concern. The only concern I have with Chet Holmgren going into this year for the NBA would more so be the fact that what I would say for him is offensively, can he take and go to the next level, right? That's been the biggest question mark with Chet Holmgren since he was in high school, was defensively, superstar. I think that he is an elite shot blocker. He's an elite defender. He's an elite help side guy. He's a guy that you could definitely have some schemes for and kind of let him be there. Can Chet play offensively in the post? I do not think so. I think that he needs to build and get a little bit stronger. But what you can do with Chet is that, again, you put him in the dunker spot. You put him in these situations where he can kind of be down low, and then he can kind of kick out to anybody. The thing I like about Chet Holmgren the most is that he is a triple threat player. He can dribble the ball, he can pass the ball, and he can score it, and he can shoot it. And that's something that, again, in today's NBA, those are things that you need. The question is, can he go to that next level where he is the number 2 guy or the number 1 guy? I kind of see him as the number 2 guy in terms of what can he do for the team offensively. If he can be the number 2 guy and you let Shai Gilgeous kind of be the number 1 guy, that is going to be an amazing player, because you pair it with Chet Holmgren's amazing defense, being able to block shots, being able to be a nice rim protector. Again, defensively, he's an NBA elite defender already, and that's something that is you can't teach, right? I mean, I know he's 7 foot, and you really can't teach that. But what I do like about him for the most part is that defensively, he's going to be a guy that helps a lot and does a lot of great things. And so for me, that is where I see the growth and progression for a guy in Chet Holmgren. Is he can be defensively, he can be a star. Now, can he be a superstar? And that means, can he do it on the offensive end? Can he be a guy that really does it for you when you need him? And so that's going to be one of the things that I'm interested in seeing in the near future for Chet Holmgren. Again, I do like the draft pick of Chet Holmgren to the Thunder. I think that if he was going to go to any team, it had to be the Thunder. I just feel like their culture, they can develop those guys that they need to. And again, I'm excited for the Thunder and Chet Holmgren and what they can do. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of Chet Holmgren? Are you a fan, or are you kind of someone that's a little bit in between with a guy like Chet Holmgren? Let's move on to number 3. The Houston Rockets draft Jabari Smith. Again, the consensus number 1 overall pick. That was what he was a couple months back. I think he'll be a good player for them. I definitely can see him being like the number 3 or number 2 guy. Again, I do like Jalen Green paired up with him. I think there's a lot of great things that you can do with him. He is a stretch 4 in all facets of the game. Again, can really shoot the rock very well. I think that's kind of his biggest strength, and is also so long and so athletic. I think you could do a lot of great things with him. The question that it comes down to for the Rockets is, when you draft Jabari, was this a draft where you missed out on the top two guys? Because I think that's the biggest question mark for a lot of people going into this year is, are the Rockets going to regret not being in the top two, getting Paolo or Chet Holmgren? Because I think a lot of the consensus was that it was going to be Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and then Paolo Banchero. But I think that this is a great place for Jabari Smith where it can take a little bit of the pressure off him not being the number one overall pick, kind of being a guy that can stretch the floor, can do a lot of great things for the Houston Rockets. I like the Houston Rockets and what they're doing in their draft class. I think they also drafted Tari Eason in this class. I like that pickup a lot, and I think that's an underrated pickup. Again, Tari Eason, another Seattle legend. Well, maybe not legend, but another Seattle player that I like his game. I think he's a great player. I think he can do a lot of great things for the Houston Rockets. So I'm excited to see what he does in the near future. So we're going to kill two birds with one stone. Talk about both Tari Eason and Jabari Smith. Tari Eason, a great elite defender at his age already. So I think that that's another thing that the Houston Rockets can hang their hat on, is that they drafted and got another guy that can defensively be a showstopper, a star stopper in the NBA, and that's kind of what they needed in order to be a great team. I like that pickup, and so Jabari Smith, I think going back to him, I think that this is also another great pickup. The question for them and the question for everybody now is, can Jabari Smith go to that next level? That's the biggest question mark going with him. Again, I like the pickup. I think he's a great player. He showed at Auburn that he can do a lot of great things. But my question for him is, can he be that number two guy for the Houston Rockets going into the future? Because I think the Rockets have a great core nucleus of young players. And now it's all about, can he be part of that nucleus as like the number two guy? Because I think Jalen Green is going to be the number one guy. You drafted him for that reason. And so, again, we'll see where Jabari Smith goes in the near future for the Houston Rockets. Let's move on to number 4. That is the Kings drafting Keegan Murray. He had a great game actually last night in the California Classic, if you guys were watching. I believe he had 23 points, if I'm not mistaken. Let's kind of look at it again. Keegan Murray, I believe he had 26. So he had 26 points in the night previously. 8 boards. Again, we'll look at a little bit of the highlights really quick for you guys for Keegan Murray. I believe he is number... Can't remember what number he was. Might be 13. I think he's 13. Again, good motor there. Way to cut to the basket. Again, a lot of guys would kind of just spot up and try to shoot there. But I do like Keegan Murray. And here's the thing I will say about Keegan Murray that I think a lot of people were a little bit confused with. Because here's the thing that was supposed to happen. In this draft class, you were supposed to have Jaden Ivey be drafted to the Sacramento Kings. The reason why I think that was not happening for the Sacramento Kings in drafting Jaden Ivey was because you already have a guy in De'Aaron Fox who kind of does the similar thing. And so you don't want a situation where you had a couple years back where you had Tyrese Halliburton and you had De'Aaron Fox, and you're like, okay, we're going to just kind of forget about Tyrese Halliburton at the end and kind of build around De'Aaron Fox and the team, with Sabonis as well that you got from the trade. I think that Keegan Murray is going to be an underrated player. I think he has a lot of potential to be a great scorer in this league. I think that, because he went to Iowa, he was a little bit overlooked. I think a lot of people didn't really see the potential in Keegan Murray. But watching a lot of Big Ten basketball, because I am a Johnny Davis fan, and I kind of liked his game. And so watching Wisconsin, I needed to watch the other players in that league. I liked Keegan Murray. I think that he's another guy that could do it for the Sacramento Kings. I think a lot of people are going to say that this was Kings being Kings type of draft pick. I like the Keegan Murray pick. I think he's going to do great things for them. Again, it's going to be a couple years before that happens. And my only question for the Kings is, did you trade for Sabonis to get better and kind of try to go for a win-now mentality? Or did you draft him as kind of like an asset so you can trade later and get someone younger? Because that's the biggest question mark for me for the Kings is, what are their moves? Because again, I like Sabonis. I think I would have loved him for the Boston Celtics. I think he would have done a lot of great things for us. But at the same time, you also have to look at it from this perspective of, from the Kings side, is he a guy that improves your team enough to get you into the playoffs? Because this is going to be a tough, competitive Western Conference. I mean, we look at the teams that have improved. There's teams that have gotten better. We obviously talked about the Timberwolves, who got tremendously better by adding in Rudy Gobert. And so that's going to be a question mark for the Sacramento Kings is, did they do enough not only just drafting Keegan Murray, but also the fact that they got Sabonis, the fact that they're going to kind of go with that combination of both players. That is going to be something interesting to see from that perspective. Let's move on to number 5, Jaden Ivey. I actually love this pickup for the Pistons. When you think about the Pistons and kind of what they're trying to do, we all know that they were trying to team up Cade Cunningham with another scoring guard. Again, this was before they decided to get him. You had Killian Hayes, who was a long-term project. I believe he was the 7th pick overall. And so for me, I think getting Jaden Ivey, who again could be a Ja Morant light in terms of his ability to kind of get into the lane, score, has an extremely great balance and kind of coordination, and really can play the angles right. I mean, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos and seen a lot of Instagram videos of Jaden Ivey kind of being able to bump a guy, kind of go at the right angle to go and finish and score, which I do love to see from a lot of great guards. I think Jaden Ivey can be a great asset to the Pistons. You team him up with Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham going to be more of a kind of slow, calm, collected player, where you have Jaden Ivey kind of a push and pace type of guy. And again, this is what the Pistons wanted with their Killian Hayes guy, but unfortunately, Killian Hayes has not lived up to the expectations that they were hoping for. And again, I think that he definitely does replace Killian Hayes in that aspect of now being the starter, and you kind of have Killian Hayes be a guy that comes off the bench, or you trade him and maybe you see if you can't get some assets for him and see if you can't maybe make a push to get into the play-in game. Again, the Pistons are doing a great job of building for the future, so we'll find out in the near future what this team has to offer and what things have to offer. So I'm excited about this pick. I love Jaden Ivey. I think the Pistons did a great job of drafting Jaden Ivey in this spot. 6, we got the Pacers drafting Benedict Mathurin. I love Benedict Mathurin. I think that he's a guy that is a huge 3-and-D. I think he has a great motor. I think that Benedict Mathurin unfortunately got drafted to the wrong team. I think the Pacers are in this weird kind of rebuild, not rebuild. They have a lot of pieces. I think they're going to trade Miles Turner. I think that's the next progression for them. But in terms of as a player for the Pacers, who they're getting, I love Benedict Mathurin. I think that he was a great guy. I had them winning the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, that just wasn't the case this year. But I think he was a huge reason as to why the Arizona Wildcats played so well and why they were able to kind of be a great team and why people feared playing this team. Again, they got Tommy Lloyd from Gonzaga, great coach. I think he does great things, and you could see some of the offensive things that they like to do. They were one of the top teams in terms of pushing the pace. A great X's and O's coach, was able to get the best out of him. And so I think for Benedict Mathurin, the question now becomes, for the Pacers, is he going to be a guy that helps you immediately? Because you got Chris Duarte, you got Tyrese Halliburton, you got rid of Brogdon, you have Miles Turner. It looks like you're looking to trade Miles Turner. It's going to be an interesting team for the Pacers and what they do. Again, I do like Benedict Mathurin. The question for me for the Pacers is, who do they build around? Do they build around Duarte? Do they build around Halliburton? Or do they build around Benedict Mathurin as they drafted him number 6 overall? Again, I think Benedict Mathurin could be a great addition to any team. I wish he was going to a better team, but it is what it is. But let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of Benedict Mathurin? Are you a fan of his? Are you not a fan of his? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's go to number 7, Shaedon Sharpe for Kentucky. I know Pete was a huge fan of Shaedon Sharpe. I think he talked about him in the live stream that we did a couple days ago. I like him. I think that he'll be a good player. The question is, can he be the guy that a lot of people expect him to be, right? Because he did not play college last year. He did not play in the Ignite League. I think he was supposed to go to Kentucky, but ended up not going there. I think that this is going to be a very interesting player for the Blazers because they are... they're a very interesting team because I think that they could potentially be trading Shaedon Sharpe and Anthony Simons to get like a guy like Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving to team up with Damian Lillard. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the right choice for them. I don't know if the Blazers have enough pieces, but I think that the Blazers need to start looking at a huge rebuild and kind of building around Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe if that's who they are deciding to build around. I know they just re-signed Nurkic to a long deal. So I'm very curious to see what they're able to do with that. So we're gonna be interested to see what goes on in that situation. But again, I do like the Shaedon Sharpe pick. The question for me is, for the Blazers, because they're still keeping Damian Lillard, does that stunt the growth of him? Because I think it stunted the growth. If you think about it for Anthony Simons, I think Anthony Simons could have been a player that you could have developed and grown a lot more. But at the end of the day, it is what it is in terms of, he decided not to do that. But I do like the fact that Shaedon Sharpe has a lot of potential. And again, if he can live up to that, you're going to be looking at a great player teaming up with Anthony Simons. Again, I think that Anthony Simons is going to be really good. And you could see that from kind of just the potential that he had. It's going to take a while, and I think it's going to be the same thing for Shaedon Sharpe. It's going to take a little bit of time. You have to be patient with him. You have to be patient with the way that he's kind of growing and developing. Otherwise, you're going to lose out on kind of what's been going on in the situation at hand for the Blazers in terms of, okay, now that we have Shaedon Sharpe, how long is it going to be before he's ready to pair up with Anthony Simons and really kind of contend for a championship? Because again, both of those guys are wings, and it's going to be very interesting to see how those wings play together in the near future. So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys make of Shaedon Sharpe and his Blazers draft pick? Are you guys a fan of it? Are you not a fan of it? Let me know in the comment section down below. Moving on to number 8, the Pelicans drafted Dyson Daniels, another guard from the G League Ignite. I think he kind of made a name for himself this year. I do like the pickup of Dyson Daniels. Again, the Pelicans are still looking for that point guard that they had. I mean, if we look at the Pelicans roster, they drafted a lot of guys, and they just re-signed Zion Williamson. So that's going to be a very interesting situation for him in terms of, does he live up to that contract? Again, there's question marks about, do we the question marks for him was more so, is he going to live up to the expectations that, that they need from him? He wanted to play last year. He wasn't able to. And so I think that's going to be the very interesting situation moving forward for the Pelicans is, can they keep him healthy? Because I think that's, to me, what I want to see from the Pelicans, and really kind of what I want to see from Zion is, can he stay healthy and can he stay in shape to keep playing this game? Because he is an elite talent level. Again, I think this was a huge missed opportunity for the New York Knicks, and I think that they should have basically thrown the kitchen sink at Zion to kind of lure him, to get him to not sign that extension deal. I understand that's a lot of money, but I think for Zion, I think for him and his stepdad, I think they want him to be the face of a franchise. And, for the Pelicans, it's, they have a young team. I like their core nucleus. But I just think they don't really mesh well together, right? I think that you have to look for guys that are kind of humble, and more so kind of like low-key superstars, whereas I feel like Zion Williamson wants to be a guy that's in the forefront, obviously with his Jordan Brand signature shoe. He wants to be a guy that's in the front line and really being a guy that wants to be out in front. Whereas I feel like guys like Brandon Ingram, they just want to hoop and they just want to ball out. And I think those are the type of players that the Pelicans need to sign. But let's look at their roster really quick. You have E.J. Liddell, who I really like, as another guy they drafted in the second round. But let's look at their guards. C.J. McCollum, I think a great point guard, great leadership. I do like him a lot. I think that he can definitely add some value to this team. You have Devontae Graham, who, again, I wasn't necessarily a big fan of. I think that he's a decent player. But I don't know if he's really your starting guard. Of course, you have Willie Hernan-Gomez. I think was he the star of the, or maybe it was Hancho Hernan-Gomez that was the star. Jackson Hayes, he kind of had his situation going on. You have Kira Lewis Jr., who you drafted last year. I was not impressed with him too much to where I'm like, yes, this guy can be the starting guard for the Pelicans. And this is why they drafted Dyson Daniels, and this is why I think that he'll be the starter in the near future. I do like his game. I think that he can really add some dynamic. You have Brandon Ingram. You have Jose Alvarado. Again, a great backup kind of six-man guard that can do a lot of great things on defense, be a pest, really do a lot of great things. I like him a lot. I think that he can do some tremendous things for you. You have Larry Nance Jr., who can be a trade piece. You have Jonas Valanciunas, great guard. You have Trey Murphy III. Not a bad player, but I think, the reason why you got Dyson Daniels is to be the starter. You have Garrett Temple. Again, there's some good players on this team. I think a solid team. And, of course, you have the head coach in Willie Green. I like Willie Green and kind of what he's able to do for for this team. I mean, if we look at the head coach, let me see if we can. I don't know if they have the head coach here. They have a lot of like scouts coaching. Willie Green. I like what he did last year. I love the passion that he brings to this organization. I think that he could be a great. Ooh, got some honking going on outside. But I think he could be a great key attribute and key piece to a coach. Like I said, I think Willie Green does a lot of great things. I think that he is a coach with so much passion, so much energy. I love what I'm seeing from him as a coach. And so I think for me, when it comes down to for the Pelicans, the question mark for me becomes, can they do a lot of great things? Again, Mike D'Antoni, a coaching advisor. If you have Mike D'Antoni on your roster at any capacity, whether he's an advisor, whether he's a coach, he's a guy that if you can get him to team up with a guy like Brandon Ingram or a guy like Dyson Daniels and really develop him. That's why for the Hornets, I was a little disappointed that they weren't able to get him, because I think he can take LaMelo Ball to the next level. And I think that when you look at all this situation going on for the Pelicans, I think that he can help this team get it to the next level. The question mark is he going to be an advisor for this team, or is he going to be kind of chilling and relaxing and kind of being on vacation when it comes to Mike D'Antoni? But again, I like the pickup of him. I think you could see that there were some influences in the offense. You can definitely see that there was a lot more fast-paced, fast action. Whereas with Van Gundy, it was a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, and I just don't think that it really added to what I think you could have gotten from this team if Willie Green was the head coach a couple years back. But it is what it is. He's the head coach now. I think that he could definitely add a lot of great things, and Dyson Daniels being one of those guys could definitely be a great contributor to any team into the near future. Let's move on to the next team. The Spurs drafted Jeremy Sochan. I love Jeremy Sochan as a player. I think, to me, he's a very versatile guy, can switch 1 through 5. I like the pickup of him. The question mark for me when it comes to him, more so from the San Antonio Spurs side, if we look at the San Antonio Spurs and kind of what they were able to do in terms of their roster, right? Because they traded away... oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. I am blanking on his name right now, and this is really frustrating me. Oh my goodness, it is so frustrating. It's frustrating me right now. Why am I forgetting his name? I'm gonna look like such an idiot for forgetting his name. Give me a second. Gosh, I picture him. Obviously, what is a Seattle guy. My goodness, if I have to look this up, I'm gonna be so frustrated. I'm gonna have to look it up. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna be so frustrated. I'm so frustrated when I see his name, and I'm just gonna be like, dude. Dejounte Murray. Oh, that's so frustrating. I know DeJounte. That's annoying. Anyway, going back to the Spurs. The reason why, like I said, I was very confused from this perspective is the fact that Jeremy Sochan's a great role-playing asset player. And so for me, when you add him to the roster, when you're deciding that this is going to be the guy that you kind of draft, and because you're looking at Jakob Poeltl, a guy that you're probably going to lose in free agency, a guy that you're going to pay him the money. Who knows? You have Zach Collins going to be a free agent. Keita Bates-Diop going to be a free agent. You got Trey Jones, you got Romeo Langford. For me, the Spurs, what's interesting for them, they drafted Joshua Primo. Played a couple games in the league, played 50 games this season, 5.8 points per game, 1.6 assists per game. A guy that you drafted and were thinking, okay, this was going to be the next point guard, but it's not really happening. Lonnie Walker is going to be in LA. He's going to be an LA Laker. And then you have Keldon Johnson again, who averaged 17 points a game. I do like Keldon Johnson, but other than that, the question marks for me for the Spurs is who's your superstar? Who's your star player that you're building around? Who's going to be that guy that you're saying, okay, this is the guy that we want to build around our team? Because right now, when I look at their roster, it's looking like, to me, that they are in kind of a half, I would say like a half tank, half rebuild mode. Because when I really look at their roster, when I look at what they're trying to do, it doesn't seem to me that they're trying to win now, and that's obviously the case with this roster. This roster to me screams. If I had to think about it, I would say that this roster screams ninth or 10th in the West. And so when you're ninth or 10th in the West, that's not going to be good enough to get you the number one draft pick. Obviously, we talked about kind of the lottery odds, and obviously it's a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get, but you give yourself the best chance to be the number one team by being one of the worst roster teams. I wouldn't be surprised, in my honest opinion, if they try to trade Keldon Johnson. I think the reason why you try to trade Keldon Johnson is because you're trying to rebuild. You're trying to be a team that, can get some assets for him. You could probably get a couple first-round picks, maybe one or two if you're looking to kind of get that. Because, right now it looks like it's going to be Keldon Johnson's team, and everyone else has to follow suit. Again, Jeremy Sochan, a great player. I love him as a guy that can really contribute to a team. The question mark for him, though, is did you draft him to be a guy that, could be a number one or number two guy? Or did you draft him to be kind of a role-playing asset player? Because to me, that's where I view him as. And maybe I'm wrong, and let me know in the comment section down below, everybody, if you think that I'm right or I'm wrong in that situation. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to see going into the near future for the San Antonio Spurs when it comes to Keldon Johnson. Let's see what happens for the Spurs as they continue to look for a future star player. And let's move on to the next pick. We of course have Johnny Davis to the Washington Wizards. I would give this grade, and I think maybe my friends are going to be a little bit upset with me. I would have to give this one, I believe, a B- to a B, just because of the fact that the Wizards are already so loaded when we look at their roster. Let's see here, and let's look at the teams. The Wizards, and just kind of look at their roster really quick. You drafted Johnny Davis, you drafted Yannick, but you have Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who again is another player that you're looking at and saying, like, can he really do something? I think he actually got traded, if I remember right. But you just signed Bradley Beal to Supermax. You have Danny Avdija, who you like. You have Kristaps Porzingis. You have Rui Hachimura. You have Raul Neto, another guy that's kind of like a backup guard. You have Corey Kispert, who you're trying to develop as kind of a forward. You have Kuzma, who's the forward. To me, I am a little bit confused from this perspective of you draft Johnny Davis to be a guard. The question mark for me is he's a guy that I think can start for any team. Obviously, kind of came in his freshman year, struggled a little bit, and then the second year and the sophomore year, he, became almost player of the year. And so for me, I do like Johnny Davis. I think he's a great player. I do love him as a player. The question mark for me is, does he fit this Washington Wizards roster? Because I think that's so loaded with guards. Excuse me. And so for me, you have so many types of players. Again, you have Corey Kispert, who, again, great player. I think he does a lot of great things. You also have Kyle Kuzma, who does a lot of great things for you in terms of being a role player for that team. A starter, but a role-playing starter. You have Rui Hachimura, who, again, is in prove-it year for me. I think he's a guy that you need to look at and say, do we have something with him, or is he just a guy, or is he just another guy? Because that's the biggest question mark for me going into next year for the Wizards is they need to find out what they have in Rui Hachimura. You have Danny Avdija, who's kind of like a guard, a forward. You have Kristaps Porzingis, who's a forward as well. And then you got Johnny Davis, who's a guard. Again, I don't know where to begin with this team because I'm not sure if this team can really take it to the next level unless they are deciding to trade away Bradley Beal. But I don't even know if that's going to happen at this point because of the fact that, he signed a long-term extension with you, and I just don't know if any team is going to want to trade for him for that long-term extension. Again, great scorer. I think does a lot of great things for you as a player. My question mark for me is, what's he trying to do for his career? Is he trying to be a guy that wins championships, a guy that's trying to contend for a title, or is he going to be a guy that's satisfied with the money? And there's nothing wrong with being satisfied with the money. If the money's good, you got to take it. And so for me, that's the biggest question mark going into this year for me is, does Bradley Beal take it to the next level? That's the biggest question mark in that fact. And so that's going to be an interesting situation for me in terms of Johnny Davis. Like, where does he fit in this whole thing? Again, you draft him to kind of be the starter for your team, and the fact that you don't know if he's going to be a starter, you don't know if he's going to be off the bench. That's the question that I have for the Wizards going into the near future is, does he kind of go to that next level? And so that's going to be a very interesting situation for me as we kind of look to see if we can get something. Especially because I do like Johnny Davis. I think he's a great player. I think he's just misunderstood in terms of, I think that if he would have showed out a little bit more, if this Wisconsin team would have been a little bit better, I definitely could have seen him being like a top 8 pick. Maybe even going to the Blazers. I think that would have been a better fit for him. But again, you're looking at Shaedon Sharpe. You're looking at the potential. That's why you got him. And so I think for the Wizards, they did a good job with Johnny Davis. The only question mark for me is, what did they do with the rest of the roster? Because right now it just seems like they're very forward and guard heavy, especially with Corey Kispert, who you're trying to see if you got something with him. You look at, Kyle Kuzma. You're trying to figure out what's the best situation for him. Of course, you have Bradley Beal. You have Rui Hachimura, who, again, is an improve-it year this year. And so I'm curious to see what they do with him in a prove-it year. Let's move on to number 11, the Knicks. Obviously, this pick got traded to Oklahoma City Thunder for, I believe, 3 first-round picks. Here's what I will say about the Knicks. I think that they should have done their due diligence and somehow found a way to get up in the draft. I think that if they did, I think this team would have been a little bit better. But the Oklahoma City Thunder took this pick, and so we have to talk about them a little bit more. They got Ousmane Dieng, who's, again, a project, long-term guy. You're going to try to figure out what you have with him. Played for the New Zealand Breakers. You're trying to figure out what this guy can do for your roster, especially because you have so many young, talented players already. So you're going to have to figure out in the near future, like, what does this guy do for your roster? Does he improve it? Does he do something for you? Because that's the biggest question mark for me moving forward is, does a guy in Ousmane Dieng do something for you with Chet Holmgren? Do you have him in the roster together? I mean, that's the biggest question mark. And again, I would have to give this one a B to a B minus, just due to the fact that I think that if you're looking at it, I do think that there's something there, but it's going to take a little bit of time. You have to be patient with this Thunder roster. And so again, I give it a B minus for now, B, just due to the fact that I don't know what the Thunder's plans are because they have so many draft picks in the near future. I'm curious to see if they are able to get the number 1 draft pick for next year. If you can team up Chet and Victor Wembanyama, and I'll do a little bit of a video. I'm going to do a video, a documentary kind of style, kind of one of those type of videos on Victor Wembanyama and talk about the history of him, what's he been able to do, what has he done so far in his career, because I think that he's a guy that if you look at him, you team him up with Chet Holmgren, I think that's something special there. But again, that's in the near future, and we'll talk about it at a later date. Moving on to the next pick, Oklahoma City Thunder draft again, and they get Jalen Williams, guard from Santa Clara. Santa Clara obviously had a great year this year. I think he could be an underrated guard, man. I do like the fact that Jaden Williams is, a 6'6", 209-pound guard, a junior. So he's going to be a guy with some veteran experience. He's a little bit more seasoned than the other guys. And again, he went to a preparatory school. I believe that he's kind of what's the right word? You take your own path. But he was a guy that bloomed late, right? He's a guy that, again, wasn't going to be, top 10 draft pick for you. But what I do like about him is that he's a guy that has been through everything, played at a preparatory school, kind of went to Santa Clara, a school that's not necessarily known for their basketball, and really developed him. I think that he's going to be a great player, kind of can be a great shot creator, jump shooter. I do like what the prospect overview of who he is, Jalen Williams, that is. And so I'm going to be curious to see how he does in the near future. Again, Synergy Sports is providing this analysis. So the defensive analysis for him is the possessing rare length. Williams has some positive moments contesting shots and staying active on defense, while opposing offense look to run him ragged in the pick and roll. Guarding as many ball screens as most any player in the country, he had some solid moments blowing up perimeter shots with his length, but it was not immune to the lapse and gave up quickness in some matchups. Coming off with more rebounds and steals some nights than others, Williams has room to be a consistent factor off ball as he shows good instincts and spurts, and that's what you need. He's a 6'6" player with a 7'2.5" wingspan. I mean, you're gonna take your chances on him and try to figure out how you can put him on the court, because when you have a 7'2" wingspan at 6'6", you are definitely a lot more of a versatile player. You're a player that a lot of people want to have you in their class or want to have you on their team. And so I do like this pickup. I give this one a B+. More so the fact that I think that you know what you have with him. I think that he's not going to be a guy that, if we had to look at it, I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think he's going to be a star. He's going to be a solid role player that knows what to do. And if he can, especially if the Thunder team can build around the guys that they need to, he could be a great key contributor to this team going into the playoffs. And the way that the Thunder have to build in any situation is more so through the draft than anything else, because they're not a team that's going to attract a lot of free agents. And so by getting Jalen Williams on your team, you're looking at something very special there as a role player. And so that's going to be a very interesting situation. Let's go to 13. The Hornets. They traded this pickup to the Detroit Pistons. So the Pistons actually drafted Jalen Duren. I like this match. I like Jalen Duren. I was a huge fan of him. I think he's a man-child. I think that he's a guy that still has a lot of room to grow, but has the potential to be a very solid contributor as a center, power forward type of player. I think he's more of a center in my opinion than anything else. 6'11", 250. I mean, this guy is built like a tank. I think that he does a lot of great job rebounding. I love what he's been able to do. For me, the fact that he can get, a lot of great shots at the rim. I think block shots and rebounding is something that's needed in the NBA. And if you can get a guy like that for the Pistons, who are trying to build around Cade Cunningham, try to build around Jaden Ivey, Sadiq Bey, and many other players that they have around their team, I do like that pickup for them. I think Jalen Duren will do a great job for them. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how he develops and progresses in the future. But I'm excited about him. I think that he's going to do a great job for the Detroit Pistons. Moving on to 14, the Cavaliers drafted Ochai Agbaji. I love this pickup. So this to me is an A pickup for them. The Cavaliers, and maybe I'll talk about it a little bit later, maybe another day, more so, because I think that, we obviously we talked about, we're almost like 45 minutes in and we've only talked about 14 draft picks. We only finished the lottery just now. But I do love where the Cavaliers are heading. I think JB Bickerstaff has done a great job with this roster, and unfortunately it just got hit by a lot of injuries. And that's the frustrating thing about the NBA and just sports in general, is that the injuries can affect you in a lot of ways. But at the same time, you look at a guy in Ochai Agbaji, winning the championship for Kansas. I think that he could do a great job. I love the fact that he's a 3-and-D guy, what they definitely needed for this roster, a lot more shooting. And he's a guy that can shoot the ball, and I love that, especially, with the re-signing of Darius Garland now. You have Evan Mobley, you have Larry Markkinen, who was a huge surprise to many people. The question mark for me is, can he stay healthy? But I love this pickup. I give this one an A+, just due to the fact that he's another scoring guard. Shooting is what you needed, and that's what you got with him. And so I'm excited to see how the Cavaliers kind of have him in the roster, in the lineup, and see what they can do with this roster. You have Colin Sexton, who's going to be a free agent, as a backup plan to a lot of other teams. And so it's curious to see if he can get, especially from Colin Sexton's perspective, does he sign with the Cavaliers again, or does he move to a different team? Who we got? We got jumping off right now. Oh, we got Sean jumping off. All right, Sean, I'll catch you later. You can watch the rest of it a little bit later on if you want. I'm talking about the rest of the draft. Let's talk about 15, Mark Williams from Duke. I love this pickup from them. The Hornets drafted another guy that, again, center, a great player. I think the Duke Blue Devils had a lot of great draft picks in this class. Mark Williams being one of them. I think as a center, he does a lot of great things for you. I think he rebounds the ball well. He's the old school center. He's not a guy that, is going to be stretching the floor out. And so I'm curious to see kind of where his limits and what teams are going to be looking for. Because again, teams are really looking for 5 players that can do basically everything of the same thing. That being shooting, that being rebounding, that being rebounding, especially from the center perspective. You need to be able to shoot threes. I'm not sure if Mark Williams will ever be able to do that, but he's an old school center. I like him, and I think he can do a lot of great things on the pick and roll with LaMelo Ball. And again, I'm so disappointed that Mike D'Antoni's not going to be the head coach for them, and instead you're getting Steve Clifford, who again did not a very good job with the Hornets when I think they were the Bobcats years ago. But who knows? Who knows if this will be a good fit for them? Again, they got Kenny Atkinson to try to come, and he's just like, you know what? I'm just gonna stay in Golden State. And so I think that he kind of enjoys kind of the process that the Golden State Warriors are in right now, and so I could definitely see that being the case. Moving to 16, the Hawks draft AJ Griffin from Duke. AJ Griffin, obviously another great guard forward type of player for the Hawks. If we look at him and kind of his perspective, a 6'6" guard can do a lot of great things. I do like him as a player. Does a lot of great things, especially for the U16 team for FIBA. I like him. I think this was actually a great pickup. I know there was injury concerns for AJ Griffin, and that's why he kind of fell. He was supposed to be honest with you, I think he was supposed to be a top 10 draft pick, but he fell in this draft class due to the fact that he had an injury concern. But I think the Hawks got another great guard. Obviously they got DeJounte Murray now. They have Trae Young, and obviously you're gonna have AJ Griffin kind of come off the bench. I think that AJ Griffin will be a great player in the near future. Let him develop, let him heal up a little bit more. And I think that this guy can do a lot of great things for your organization. If you're the Hawks, you're excited about him. I think that he can definitely be another solid player when DeJounte Murray or Trae Young go on the bench. You can put him in there. I think he does a lot of great things for you. And so for me, AJ Griffin is another great pickup, and I give this one a B+ for the Hawks. The Rockets, we already talked about Tari Eason. You already know how I feel about him. Then the Bulls draft Dalen Terry from Arizona. Again, another good player. Don't really know too much about him. I wasn't really focused on him. I was focused more on, what was the center for Arizona? Basketball roster. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, let me see if they have his, they have him here. Close. I believe it's Koloko. Christian Koloko. I do like Christian Koloko. He's a guy that I think can do a lot of great things. So Dalen Terry, I don't really know too much about, but we can look at him from this perspective. A 6'7" guard, 6'7" out of Hillcrest Prep from Arizona itself. I think he does a lot of good things. I don't really know too much about him. He averaged, let's see here. Let me see if they have his stats. I think they might have his stats here. Let's see here. So in this season, the 2021-2022, he averaged about 8 points a game, 12 blocks, he had 51 turnovers, 3.9 assists. Again, improved a lot from his second year, so I do think that there is going to be a player there. The question mark for me for the Bulls, they re-signed Zach LaVine. The question mark for him is more so, does he take that next step? Does he go and become a good player in the future in terms of, does he help this team win a championship, or is it going to be a bust? That's the biggest question mark for me when it comes to the Chicago Bulls. And so Dalen Terry, again, another great kind of key asset player, a sophomore. So a little bit older, knows a little bit more of the experience. So I'm excited to see what they kind of do with him in the near future. So let me know in the comment section down below if you're an Arizona fan, what you guys think of Dalen Terry. I don't really know too much about him, and so I can't give this one too big of a grade. And so we'll be curious to see what happens in the near future. Let's look at Jake LaRiviera, drafted by Minnesota. I believe he goes to Memphis from what I remember. I believe he played at Wake Forest, another kind of junior forward, 6'8", 227. I don't really know too much about him either. The Memphis Grizzlies have done a great job in the draft, so I'm going to have to trust their instincts on this guy. I think there was a lot of different guys that he could have gone. I think Wendell Moore Jr. maybe could have gone another year back. You look at a guy like Patrick Baldwin Jr., who's supposed to be a top 10 draft pick. Do you take a chance on him? You got Marjon Beauchamp, who I do like. I think he's another underrated guy. You have David Rodri, who the Sixers took and traded to Memphis. He's actually going to Memphis. So, I don't really know too much about him, so we'll be curious to see in the near future. The Spurs, in the 20, drafted Malik Brom. Again, the only one I really know from Ohio State is DJ Liddell. So I don't really know too much about Brom. So again, I can't give the Spurs. No, the only thing I could say for the Spurs is they still need to find a guy who they're going to build around. Keldon Johnson is the guy so far, like just default by default. And so I'm curious to see what the Spurs do in that perspective of, okay, we got rid of a lot of our good players. What are we looking for? Are we looking for Victor Wembanyama in this draft? Are we looking for any of the other players in this draft that we want? That's the biggest question mark for me if I'm the San Antonio Spurs is, what player do we build around and get ourselves better? The Grizzlies traded this one to Minnesota, but I believe this Minnesota pick got traded to the Utah Jazz in that Rudy Gobert trade. And that was, of course, Walker Kessler. I'm not a huge fan of him. I think, obviously he's a good player. He's a decent player. I believe that he is, a decent player, obviously, at 7'1", 256, kind of mobile, long, not as awkward as a lot of people would like to think. But I think there were a lot of different guys that they could have gotten in this draft. Ty Washington being one of them. So, again, I think that this one's kind of like I'd say that this one's like a C. But again, he gets traded and used for Minnesota to trade to get Rudy Gobert. So, it'd be interesting to see how he does in Utah. I believe he is a Utah Jazz player, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, we'll see what happens there. Then you got David Rodri, again, kind of the big dude from Colorado State. I believe he was the really super buff guy, if I'm not mistaken. I really don't know what to think about 6'6", 255. I mean, he's going to be super strong. I'm good to see as kind of like an undersized guard. Undersized forward, but I think he's going to play guard. I don't know too much about him other than I thought Colorado State would have gone further in that NCAA tournament, but they ended up losing. So, again, we'll see what happens with them. Let's see if he makes the roster. Let's see if he kind of does a lot of things. Again, Memphis doesn't really miss too much. They have Desmond Bane, who's kind of that similar mold, kind of more of a buffier, stockier dude. So I'm curious to see how he kind of meshes with the rest of the team. And then you got Marjon Beauchamp for the Bucks. I love this pickup. I give this one an A. I love his motor. I think that he's been kind of overlooked his whole life. Kind of transferred here and there. I think I talked about it in one of my videos, or I think we talked about it at some point. Kind of moved from Yakima, went to Garfield, went to Nathan Hale, went to Rainier Beach. I think there was a lot of places that he went. Then he ended up going to a preparatory school, and then he went to the G League. So again, I do like him. I think that he does add a lot of versatility. He kind of adds the toughness to this team. And so for me, I love this pickup. And I think that if you're a team that's looking to get better, especially losing PJ Tucker, I think he's a great pickup for them. Spurs draft Blake Weasley, not Ron Weasley. For this one, for me, again, it just comes down to, where do the Spurs go, right? Do they, who are they building around? And again, maybe Blake Weasley's not a bad player, but again, it depends on, how people view him. I don't necessarily see him as like a guy that can do a lot of great things. Again, maybe offensively in the advanced stats will tell you differently. But again, I think that he's, from the stats that I just read there, it looks like he's very inconsistent as a shooter. And so that's my biggest concern when you draft a guard. He has to be a decent shooter, has to be a guy that can get his good shots. Again, I'm not too much of a fan of it, but it is what it is at that point. Wendell Moore Jr., I think he should have stayed another year at Duke. I think that he just needed one more year to kind of be the guy. I think he went a little bit too early in terms of a guy that probably could have been a top 10 pick next year if he wanted to be. But, you draft him at 26, and if he's supposed to be what people say he is, then he might actually be a decent player. Again, more so money-wise, he's probably looking to be a professional. He's looking for that contract. I don't blame him. And so you got Wendell Moore Jr. at 26. Don't really know too much about him other than I think he probably should have stayed another year from all the stuff I've been hearing, but it is what it is. The Heat draft Nikola Jovic, again, a guy that was supposed to be a top 15 pick, ended up going to the Heat. The Heat have a great culture of developing players, so I can't doubt the Heat in terms of building guys and developing them to be something special. And so I think you have to be patient. I think he didn't play very well in yesterday's game in the California Classic against the Lakers. And so, again, I'm looking to see what's going on. And so for me, I think I'm going to have to give this one a C+ to a B- just because of the fact that I think that, well, actually, you know what? No, I'm giving this a B because he was supposed to be a top 15. You got him at 27, if the Heat can develop like they do a lot of these other players, then I think that you have something special there in Jovic. And so I'm excited to see what they do with him. The Mega Mozart team, it looks like. Patrick Baldwin Jr. went to Milwaukee and HBCU. I think he played under his dad, if I'm not mistaken. And so, he had a lot of offers to go everywhere else. I think, let me look at the offers that Patrick Baldwin had. Let me see what offers he had. I believe he had a lot of offers, if I'm not mistaken. We went to Duke, had Duke offers. Let me see here if I have here we go. Hang on one second. Let me just get rid of this. So let's see here. He had a lot of offers from a lot of schools. I want to see where his offers are at. Again, had a lot of different offers. Could have went to Arizona State. Could have went to DePaul. Could have went to Duke. Could have went to Florida. Again, they had he could have went to a lot of different schools, but he chose to go to the school where his dad ended up going to. And so for me, the curious situation is going to be, as he ends up on the Warriors roster, and we can kind of look at what happened with him in terms of just kind of stats from this year at Milwaukee. We can take a look at what he had. Averaged 12 points a game, 1.5 assists, I think, from the field. Let's look at totals just because I think that does a little bit of a better job. 3-point, he was 26%, shooting 17 for 64. Not very good. And then 2-point percentage, he was 28 for 67, shot 41%. I believe he was injured, if I'm not mistaken, and so that's why he was kind of not. I think that's the reason why he probably did not go up in the draft a little bit. I think he was injured, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, Patrick Baldwin Jr. injury. So Patrick Baldwin only played 11 college games after aggravating an ankle injury that cut his senior season of high school and did not go through a full workout. Warriors when he visited, but Baldwin remains that his ankle is feeling good and does not anticipate it being an issue this summer. So it looks like an ankle injury kind of from his senior year to college really affected him. And I don't think he ever let that healed up. But what I will say, and, kind of watching a little bit of the California Classic, I think he did play, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if he played. I don't know if he played in it. Gui Santos actually dropped 23 points in the Kings debut. Let me see. Patrick Baldwin Jr. played in this. I'm not sure if he did or not. All I know is that Gui Santos played really well, and so that's going to be a very interesting thing for him. So yeah, I think for me, you draft a guy in Patrick Baldwin Jr. who's supposed to be, a difference maker. Someone that you're like, okay, this guy could definitely be something. But at the end of the day, I think the Warriors did a good job of drafting him. I think they do a good job of drafting their players, and I think once the Curry, Green, and Thompson era is officially over in, once it's officially over in Golden State, I'm gonna be curious to see what they do with all these young guys. I think they have some good pieces here and there, and the question mark for me is you look at a guy like Patrick Baldwin Jr., does he take that next step? Again, a guy that was supposed to be a top 5 pick in this year's draft ended up going 28 to the Warriors. That's going to be a very interesting situation for me. So we'll see what happens in the near future for Patrick Baldwin Jr. I'm rooting for him. I think that he could be a good player. As much as, the Warriors are an annoying team, more so for just because I'm a LeBron fan and a Boston Celtics fan, obviously a little frustrated with how the end of the season went, but you can't discredit the Warriors for their for what their ball movement is, what they do on offense. Again, whether Steve Kerr stays or goes once Curry ends his career, the thing that you have to kind of give your hat off to is that their culture is good enough to where, again, they're in win now mentality. They're in a win now mode. They're going to try to make sure that they build for the future. And so when they decide to leave, when Green and Curry and Thompson are officially retired or they move on, to maybe a different team because they're like, oh, we're deciding not to pay for it anymore. We're done with it. But I think that this team is going to stay together for a couple more years because you do have something special there. And so, again, Patrick Baldwin Jr. time may not come now. It may come in 2 or 3 years down the line, depending on what happens with Green and Curry and Thompson and how they build out. Grizzlies draft Ty Washington. I do like him. I think he's a great pickup for them at 29. Another backup guard because they just signed Tyus Jones. You can definitely do something special with him. I do like that. And so for the Grizzlies, I give that one a B. And then Peyton Watson for UCLA got traded to Denver. Not a bad player. 6'8" forward. But really raw. Really raw, kind of didn't really play too well. Let me look at the UCLA roster really quick. Basketball. Let's see here. Peyton Watson. Here we go. Freshman guard coming out of this class again. Didn't play particularly too well. Only averaged 3.3 points a game. Again, the only intrigue with him is that defensively he's a showstopper. 6'8". You obviously have to, when you're a 6'8" player, you're looking at it like, okay, this guy could potentially be something in the near future. I think he probably should have stayed another year at UCLA. I understand, you go to the draft, teams are telling you, and your agent's telling you, hey, man, you got the potential to go to the NBA right now. But I'm not sure if he played very well. I mean, if we look at some of the games, 1 for 7 against Washington State, 2 for 3 in another game, 3 for 11 against North Florida, 2 for 11 against CSU Bakerfield. Again, this is a guy that needs to develop offensively. Because defensively, I think he's fine. It's just offensively, as a player that you're looking at and saying, okay, this guy, we want him to be something in the near future, you just have to let him grow and develop. And I just think that whoever was giving him advice gave him the wrong advice. I think he should have went next year's class, because I think he would have been a top 15 pick. Because I think that, again, well, and the argument, or I guess the counter argument could be, oh, well, if he develops next year in the NBA, what's the difference between this and now? Is the difference is the money, right? I'm trying to make sure all these players get their bread. And I think he could have gotten his bread a little bit more if he would have went back another year at UCLA, developed another year, became a sophomore, really worked on his offensive game in the offseason. I think that we would have done it. I like the coach for UCLA. And so I think that he could have done a good job with him, like he did with a lot of these other guys. And so for me, that's going to be the interesting situation going into the near future, is trying to figure out what they decide to do. So again, I personally would have said, hey, come another year back. But, can't blame a guy that wants to get his money, wants to, kind of do his thing. Again, I'm not going to be mad at it. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. And so, again, being the 30th pick in the first round isn't a knock, but I think it would have been something I would have definitely kind of held on to. And let's just look at a lot of different players here. I think Andrew Nembhard, obviously for the Pacers. Now that they got rid of Malcolm Brogdon, you bring him in maybe as a backup, maybe as a starter, who knows? So I think for Andrew Nembhard, I'd give that one a B. Christian Koloko, I love him. I give that one a B+. I think going to the Raptors, going with Nick Nurse, that is going to be a great pickup for the Raptors in the near future. Again, getting a center in Christian Koloko, strong, great hands. I think he could be a great player in the near future. Lakers draft Max Christie from Michigan. I watched him. He kind of struggled a little bit in the debut for the California Classic in last night's game, even against a Miami Heat team that was absolutely terrible last night. I was not impressed with him last night. I think that he's a guy that, could be a decent player in the near future, but he's going to have to wait and develop him. He's going to be a long-term project, and so he's probably going to play in the G League. He's probably going to play with the South Bay Lakers and just kind of develop there, just like Matt LeClung did. And the guy that they probably should have went after was either EJ Liddell for me personally, or Jaden Hardy. I think you look at a guy like Jaden Hardy who's going to go to Dallas. I actually do like the pickup of Jaden Hardy. Again, a guy that was supposed to be the number 1 or number 2 pick in this year's draft. And so for me, that's going to be a very interesting situation going forward. And so let's kind of be patient with it. I think that when it comes to Jaden Hardy, I think that he's a guy that could develop into a great, nice player. Obviously struggled in the G League Ignite. But I think there is something there with him. And I just think that he's going to be a guy that's still developing, a guy that you still kind of are like patient with. The question for me is, are they patient enough? Because you already have Luka in his prime. Do you go and develop that? So that's going to be a very interesting question mark. And so that's going to do it here for the draft, everybody. Let me use the restroom really quick. We're going to go back to watch a little bit of the Slovenia game. But we're going to talk about the LA Lakers in just a second. Let me just use the restroom. All right, we are back. I do apologize, people, that it took a little bit long. Hopefully the camera adjusts to me at some point, maybe. You're still going to be blurry? Hang on one second. Yeah, that's annoying. There we go. Perfect. All right, we are officially back. I do apologize, people, that it took a little bit longer, and obviously we have to do this. So with further ado, let's go to the last story of today's video. Again, I do apologize. So here we go. The last story that we are going to talk about today is, of course, the story of Kyrie Irving potentially going to the Lakers. Of course, this is a situation at hand that is going to be closely monitored by everybody, including myself. I think a lot of people kind of called this being the case when it comes to Kyrie Irving and the Nets and KD. The disappointing thing, and I think Pete and I talked about it in the video, a couple days ago. I believe Friday is when we talked about it. The disappointing thing when it comes to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, from my perspective, is I feel like these guys kind of gave up on each other and really gave up on the organization that they kind of created the mess for, right? When we think about kind of the situation at hand when the draft, or when they originally were free agents, the original move was really going to be going to the Knicks. The Knicks were the first team that a lot of people were like, okay, we could definitely see Kevin Durant going here. He wants to go to New York. But at the last minute, Kyrie Irving kind of directed Kevin Durant to go to the Nets because, the Nets have a lot of young pieces. They have a great roster. And obviously the Nets basically sabotaged their team that they had, where they made the playoffs the previous season with D'Angelo Russell, with Jared Allen, and many of those other guys, and blew it up and decided to bring in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And again, they were one game away 2 years ago when they played in the Milwaukee Bucks series from winning a championship, or at least going to the NBA Finals and facing the Phoenix Suns. And this year was a little bit of a different story. You obviously had the vaccine mandates. You had a lot of other different stuff. You had Kyrie Irving kind of maybe playing, not playing. Like, there was always that question mark with him, and he became a part-time hooper this year. And to no surprise, as a Boston Celtics fan, again, I will respect Kyrie Irving from the fact that I think he wanted the challenge of being the guy in Boston. But unfortunately, you run into the fact that you got Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, who are the two young guys coming up, and they're hungry and they want it, man. And so when you have two guys that want it like that, unfortunately, you kind of have to be the second fiddle to the team and the second fiddle to whatever situation goes on there. And so Kyrie Irving decided he won out. He didn't re-sign with us and ended up going to, like I said, the Knicks or the Nets at that point. When it comes to Kyrie Irving, there's times where I feel like he doesn't know what he really wants from basketball perspective. I think in life, you know what he wants. He wants, obviously, to make the money, which, again, I have no problem with people getting their bread. Get your bread. I will never hate on anybody getting their money. But then you also have a situation with Kyrie Irving, again, became a part-time hooper, really focused on the social justice stuff. And again, I have no problems with the social justice stuff. If that's what you want to do, man, you do you. I will never hate on it. The question, or the only thing that I will say, is that if you're going to do something, you do it 100%. You don't you don't half-ass it, right? Like, you go full send or you go no send on it. And so for me, Kyrie Irving, if he wanted the social justice, I think he should have just went full send on it and just been like, okay, basketball's not going to be my main priority. Because I think from the Nets' perspective, when they were signing those two guys, they thought, okay, great, we're going to get two great players, we're going to contend for a championship. And again, last year, they were one game away from going to the NBA Finals, and then this year, losing to the Boston Celtics in the sweep was definitely not what anybody had on their bingo card. And so I think from my perspective, I think that this was bound to blow up in people's faces, because if you really think about it, the Nets kind of let them run the organization the way that they did. And again, this goes down to the blame has to go to the Nets and has to go to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, because you decided that these were going to be your guys. This is who you're going to build your roster around. This is what team you want. And at the end of the day, you let them have the power to do it. And their ended up power is going to be trading away. You traded away James Harden in the middle of the year, where I thought you could have kept him and kind of been like a facilitated point guard. You bring in Ben Simmons now, who was hurt and didn't really contribute last year. Now you're going to be left with Ben Simmons, who, again, is going to be his team now in Brooklyn. I'm not sure how that's going to work out for the Brooklyn Nets. And then apparently now you're going to trade away Kyrie Irving to get Russell Westbrook. So you have a backcourt of Russell Westbrook and Ben Simmons. That's going to be a very interesting team. And I'm not sure if it's a playoff team, but I think the Nets also did a disservice by now trading away Royce or getting Royce O'Neal for a first round pick when you knew that Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant were going to be gone. Again, the Royce O'Neal pickup would have been great if they would have stayed, but unfortunately they're not staying. And so for me, if I'm the Nets, I'm doing this deal to get Russell Westbrook because I think you can create a lot of cap space for yourself and it creates a lot of opportunities for you to do something in the near future where maybe you can trade and get some draft picks and do other things. I think the Nets have to be a team that does it from scratch. I don't think they can be a team. I understand they're in Brooklyn. I understand they're in New York. You can attract free agents. You did already with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but I think the only team that can really do it successfully would be the Knicks because they have the charisma, they have the history. Whereas I feel like the Nets have to be a team because at the end of the day they still feel like a New Jersey team. They're a team that has to kind of do it from within and kind of draft their team because I don't think that they can do it by just trading. And I think they've shown you that that's just not the case. And so for me personally, what I would have done is I would trade Kyrie Irving and KD to get AD and Russell Westbrook. I think you have to do that. As Lakers, I think you would love that. You have Kyrie Irving, you have KD. If those two players get traded to the Lakers are instant title contenders. They instantly become title contenders. I know we could talk about, LeBron had AD before and he always got hurt, and is Kevin Durant going to be different? Kevin Durant is going to be totally different. Kyrie Irving is going to be totally different. LeBron has played with Kyrie before, and so I have no doubt that those two will play well together again. I think LeBron will keep Kyrie in check and will let him know, hey, man, I need you to really focus on basketball and really help me win these games here because I think that's what LeBron wants to do, especially in the final years of his career. He wants to go to the finals. He doesn't want to deal with, building again with the LA Lakers, who, again, don't really have a lot of pieces. They need to get younger. They got a lot of younger pieces, but they're still missing that point guard that can get them over the hump. And I think if you get Kyrie Irving, that's the guy that gets you over the hump. Get Kevin Durant, and it makes life a lot easier. I saw reports that Kevin Durant wants to go play in Miami. I actually wouldn't mind that. Go to Miami. Go to the East and try to contend for a championship. I think the Miami Heat have the ability to get Kevin Durant. It's going to take a lot of finagling, but I think they can do it. And if I'm the Nets, I'm looking just to do it and just rebuild, man. It's time to rebuild. It's time to reload. It's time to retool because at the end of the day, these two players do not want to play for your organization. And unfortunately, just due to the fact that, and I talked about it before, with guys like James Harden and Ben Simmons, these two guys should have really finished out their contracts before they done all this stuff. Again, if I'm the Nets, I'm looking to get the most value I can, so I can't really hate on this trade too much. But these two created the mess in Brooklyn. Let's keep it a stack. Like, this wasn't, we're even talking about just last year that they were just one game away from going to the NBA Finals. Actually, no, sorry, not the NBA Finals. Was it the NBA Finals? No. They were a couple games away, but they were still like in contention to go to the NBA Finals. They beat the Bucks. I think they ended up going to the NBA Finals. They beat the Bucks, but they ended up not doing that. And again, I think the Nets have to figure it out from within. They have to figure it out from the draft. They have to figure it out from that perspective because you can't do it the way by getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I think they let him run the organization. They let him pick the head coach. They said, nah, we're gonna pick our own players. We're gonna pick our own head coach. You can pick whatever head coach you want. We're still the coach. We're gonna still be the top dogs. We're gonna be the players that decide what goes on in the organization. And when you do that, this is what you get. You get everything just exploding in your face, and now you're left holding the bag as the Brooklyn Nets decide we have to trade him and get rid of him. And so I would do this trade, get Russell Westbrook, create that cap space for yourself for next year, and ultimately end up with a situation where you can trade that piece. You can get that money and end up getting a free agent that could help you out, maybe a couple free agents. But again, I think that the Brooklyn Nets obviously did this to themselves. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant did this to themselves. And so I think at the end of the day, the Nets and the Lakers have to do this trade. I think you have to just decide that this is going to be the move that you make. And so at the end of the day, if I am the Brooklyn Nets, I'm making this trade. The Lakers get Kyrie Irving. They reunite LeBron and Kyrie back together again. And I think you just let it happen. You let it ride. You see what goes on in the near future. And at the end of the day, for the Kyrie Irving trade, for Kyrie Irving's sake, for LeBron's sake. Get them to LA, let them play together, and see what they can do, man. I think they could do a lot of good things. You get Seth Curry on this team as well. You get a Curry brother to join the Lakers. I think you have something special there. And I think at the end of the day, the LA Lakers have to make this trade. They have to make moves. They really have to get this one over the line because of how much rumors are going around. In my opinion, you have to force this trade, because if you don't, you're going to lose out on Kyrie Irving and you're going to be stuck with LeBron and Russell Westbrook for another year. And I just don't know if that's going to be necessarily a great thing for LeBron James's career. You know, especially for a guy that wants to win a championship and a title, you have to get him a lot more pieces, and I think they will in the near future. But with that being said, thank you once again for joining us here on The Charge. That will be it. Please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Remember, the more likes, the more subscribers, the more this channel can grow and develop and be something that I think and know it can be, which is something that a lot of people are interested in. A lot more people will fall in love with it instead of, kind of going to the mainstream and, listening to Stephen A. Smith and all these other kind of talking heads and puppets that go on in the mainstream. Come to The Charge. We're organic. We talk real talk. We talk about our original opinions, and we talk about what we think could happen in the NBA. And again, whether it's right or wrong, these are organic opinions. This isn't something that's mainstream. We don't have producers. We don't have anybody in the background being like, hey, you need to say this. This is what you need to talk about. Again, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you guys make of this Kyrie Irving situation? Do you think the Nets should do it? Do you think the Lakers should pull the trigger and try to say, hey, let's get this guy ASAP? Or do you think that you would go in a different direction? I would love to know your comments and opinions in the comment section down below. But with that being said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining us. And please remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe. Peace, everybody.